people that end up owning like fast food restaurants, like a Burger King or a McDonald's, they're the owner, but they also usually work there. Isn't that wild?
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's every business.
Yeah.
I own a record label and a festival, and I work at it.
That's a
You
good
saw me
point.
during Freakout Fest.
Yeah, you're the first person I saw.
Running around like a crazy person.
Yeah.
I work harder than anybody there all weekend.
Yeah, you got an interesting face. I think that's, I was like, literally I arrived, I was expecting to see a friend first, and I saw you first, and I hadn't even met you, and I was like, that's Guy.
Yeah, I was freaking out probably.
Yeah, you're like running around, blowing in the breeze.
Yeah.
You know? So this is the NAST podcast, and today my guest is the one and only, it's Keltner, you said?
Yeah.
That sounds like Irish. Is it?
It's German.
Oh, it's close. Yeah. Maybe not.
It's German. My mom's Mexican, actually.
Oh.
But my dad was, white dude.
Okay. And you are the owner of Freakout Records. And is it the right word frontman? I don't know what the right word for the lead person in a band. You're the lead singer of a band?
Yeah, I guess the front. I am Acid Tongue.
Okay. So when did you become Acid Tongue? Was it you took some acid and you're like, shit, I need a band now?
It's been almost 7 years.
Damn.
It's been a while.
How old are you? Like 30 or something like that?
34. I just turned 34 last month.
Wow.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I was working for a nightclub in town. Okay. Numos, that we talked about. And I was also in another band that did really nasty garage rock.
Is that the one that was on KXP?
Yeah, Fox and the Law.
Yeah, I watched it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was kind of bored with everything. And I was also writing pop, songs that are still rock and roll, but like pop songs. And the other band I was in was very much, blues, pentatonic shit. And got fed up with it. So I met Ian. He's about 5 years younger than me. So back then, he was in very early 20s and he had just had a son. And didn't know what to do in his life either. And so we put out this EP, and it was this like really awesome summer where KXP played the shit out of it. Yeah. And for us, that meant everything. And, I had been so burnt out on touring with the other band, but had made some connections in Europe. So I started traveling out there more and recorded another EP in London. Nice. And that did all right too, at least as far as, us getting some opportunities to play festivals and tour more. So when you make an album and EP in London, do you like promote it in London or do you promote it back here or where? We were on a label in England, like a little niche kind of punk rock label called Failure by Design. Nice. My previous band had been on it. Okay. So like I said, I'd been touring with them a bit and we had just started coming out to Europe because of that KXP live session that you checked out. So that yanked us out there, and I just fell in love with traveling in Europe and touring out there and playing with some of the musicians that because of Ian having a kid, like a newborn, he had to stay home a lot. He couldn't tour. So we would work on the records together in Seattle and on Portland. And then I would travel with whoever I could pull together, whether that was Ian or, subs. And have had, I don't know, probably like 40 or 50 members in the last 6 or 7 years. Do you vet these people, I'm guessing? It's not like you're just finding someone in the corner. These are people we know really well. But that was a lot of fun for me. Like to be able to do an EP in Seattle and then to fuck off and just go. I didn't have a place to live at that. I got rid of my house in Seattle when we started this band, and I realized I was like, I'm going to tour with this and just do this for a while. Wow. And because I had been on the road so much with the previous band and with this, the bosses at Nemo's were like, dude, we're laying you off. Like, here's some money for severance. Go do your thing for a bit, figure it out. Like, and that's what happened. Like, I hit the road, and then I came back to the States after being gone for maybe 4 or 5 months and was in New York City and just realized I had to live there for a bit. So I
Damn, that's cool.
I did a show out there and just got a lease and stayed for 3 years.
Off the show?
Not because of that show. I think it's because of the friends that were at that show.
Okay.
And I had been in New York a lot. You know, I had been traveling out there, and I think it might have even been the second or third time I came through with Acid Tongue. I can't remember which, but we had only been a band for less than a year, and I just knew I needed to get out of Seattle and not look so inward. I think it's easy to get trapped in a bubble out here, and the whole point, at least a lot of the decisions we made when we started this band, were to try and defy that and not do the Seattle bubble.
Yeah.
I didn't want to sound like a band from Seattle. I want to sound like a good band.
From England.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, and even that was just me and one other guy that did it in England, and that was a lot of fun. Like, I stayed at his folks' place with them.
Wow.
And we just spent like a week straight, you know, getting up around 10 or 11 in the morning, you know, having a long breakfast and then working all day for 10, 12 hours on that.
Damn.
Yeah, that was fun. And that's just, you know, kind of where the direction went from there, you know, like, was just to travel and be like a band that sort of made our name on the road and developed the sound on the road. So it shifts from record to record because I'm sort of immersed with different players and traveling different places, and I'm trying to capture some of that electricity.
Yeah. So when you were in high school and like thinking about like your future career, did you want to be in a band, or did you go to college ever? Or?
I went to UW.
Okay.
Yeah.
What'd you do at UW?
I got a degree in economics.
What can you do with that?
I guess I can run a record label with it.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, and the festival. So I did something with it, I suppose.
That's wild. So how did you even get connected with, like, so first off, would you say like the music industry is like all about connections then? Because it seems like.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's where you made all these connections, and that's what helped you.
But it's also having some get up and go because, like, you know, we smoke so much pot. And we get so drunk and, you know, do all these, like, just musicians in general are unreliable.
Yeah.
So if you have a little bit more oomph to what you're doing, it's not that hard to get ahead. It's hard to be good, and it's hard to have, I suppose, the type of purpose that is going to translate to a wider audience. You know, to go into something motivated, but also have the direction it's going to take. That's tough.
Then how did you find that for you then?
I've worked in the industry for a long time. I think I started when I was like 24 or 25 working at the club. And that was, you know, I was leaving from an advertising agency before that.
Oh.
So a lot of what you're doing there is trying to broaden the audience of a brand. And I didn't go into music ever thinking that way. Music was first. I've been doing that since I was a little kid. But I need to make money, and I want to do this for the rest of my life. And I care. So when I'm in the studio, you know, none of that shit comes into my head. But as soon as I'm kind of have the product in my hand, I got to figure out what to do with it. And that's the toughest part.
Right.
I think that's what traps bands in Seattle and anywhere, honestly.
Marketing?
You got so many bands that are super talented, but they don't know what to do with the product.
Yeah.
So they just dump it onto Bandcamp, you know, right out. And that's not a problem if you dump it right after you record it, but like, who's listening to that? How do you get attention? You have to have a narrative to what you're doing. And I think I realized that I needed to develop a more interesting narrative than just some fucking band from Seattle, you know?
Yeah.
And so I started going on the road to have, you know, a story to tell. That's what changes.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you were part of the music scene here in Seattle before you?
Oh,
everyone
absolutely.
On the road? Okay.
Fully immersed in the music scene here.
And what was that like? Because I've heard like the rap perspective, but what was like the band perspective?
I mean, I was involved with the rap scene. I was presenting shows in town before I left. So I left in 2015, and that was the year we started the band.
Okay.
Before that, you know, I went to college here. I started Fox and the Law in college. I figured out touring, which is hard in itself. I think when you're in your early 20s, you're like, how do I rent a car?
Yeah.
How do I book shows outside of my hometown? You know, that took a few years.
And how do you do that first, actually?
Back then it was probably fucking MySpace or Facebook or something. You know what I mean? Like, who knows? But just talking to people, you know, and knowing a band, or you meet somebody, or, you know, I'm lucky. I have family. I'm from Los Angeles, our family. So, you know, I was able to travel the coast a bit and go, and I have family in San Francisco, and that's where I was born. And so there's at least a little bit of like interaction with other cities and music scenes by doing, you know, going to see my family, going to shows.
Yeah.
But, you know, that took a few years, and I was working just jobs because I went to school for economics. I felt, you know, on my mom's side of the family, I think I was one of the first generation to graduate from a university.
Congrats.
So that was important, you know, and that's kind of why I stuck to working, you know, suit and tie gigs for a few years after college before I realized, like, fuck this, like, I have to do music full time. I tried my best at the desk, and that was cool. It gave me some habits and some skills that I apply now to running the festival and running the label. And I got a better understanding of, you know, how an audience works, not just for music, but for any sort of brand. And that has been amazing to apply to what I do now, because I can still have these very serious emotional moments with my songs, very personal moments, to give birth to these things. But then I have, you know, I guess the ability to develop some sort of platform. And that's, you know, what Freakout is all about. That's what everything I'm doing these days is all about.
Do you think artists should go to school then and work these 9-to-5 jobs? Or...
I don't know if I can recommend school if it's not your thing, you know. It wasn't my thing. I tried to drop out, and my family very much got involved and said, you can't do that. Like, please don't.
Damn.
My grandparents were calling me, and, you know, I had like aunts and uncles texting me like, what the fuck are you doing? You know.
Did they not like your music? Like, how long did it take them to get on board?
I think there was a moment where, you know, before it got to where it's at now, where, you know, even my mom sat me down. She's like, are you sure you want to do this? And that's because, you know, it doesn't mean it was good. It was probably some of it was shit.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, you know, there are songs that have like 1 million+ plays online now that, you know, one of them I wrote when I was like 15, like the pieces of it, you know? So it's not like I didn't know what I was doing. I just, again, I didn't have that image together. So it's tough, you know? Now my mom sees it all, and she's like, holy shit, this makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, I just didn't know how to present it to the audience, including your family, including your friends.
Kind of market to
my
your family.
friends thought it was fucking weird, you know? There was shows where my friends were like, dude, what the fuck is he doing? It takes a long time, you know? And not everyone's always going to like it either. I still have family and friends that just don't get it, you know, and never will. And that's okay.
So you go, wait, before I get into that, actually, how would you describe the music scene then when you were coming up in like 2015? Like, do you think
at that point it was starting to disintegrate because previous to that, rent was a lot cheaper, and it had been fucking skyrocketing for years. That's what kicked us out of town. Like, the reason I picked New York City was honestly like, I had this thought popping in my head of like, I'm spending this much to live in my hometown. I'm gonna go live in Brooklyn. It was a little more expensive, but not that much. And honestly, there were things about it that were cheaper. I didn't have to own a car anymore. You know, I didn't have to do certain things. And so, you know, I think the music scene was really like amazing when I was in college, and I was obsessed with what was going on. I mean, that was the era of like Fleet Foxes, the Shins, you know what I mean? Like, the Northwest was doing cool shit in the 2000s.
So do you think so I don't know if I really agree with it, but like, I feel like a lot of people blame certain situations, not even just like Seattle, but like music scenes on like gentrification, and gentrification being the reason for things increasing, and that can like ruin like a scene.
That's a bit of it. And that's, you know, we were talking earlier about the tech companies coming in and expanding, and they just, what happens is the routine of working for a place like that can dilute culture in a city in a big way. Because you ever watch those old like Looney Tunes cartoons where they're playing these like da 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 da, and they're showing like the factory,
Yeah.
and everybody's walking in and out, and they're all in the same suit and tie, and they're doing this. Like everybody goes in, they have breakfast, you know, in their hand, and it's like a fucking pastry and their coffee, and they sit down and they work for 6 hours, and then they go to lunch together and they eat it, you know, Chipotle or some shit, and then they come back in and they're ordering shit online and they're reading Vice, and then they go home and they watch Netflix or they play their Xbox One, and everything's really catered to them. So it doesn't encourage people to get outside of their comfort zone. And you know, this is a big philosophy of why I'm trying to bring music, you know, from some of these international bands into town right now, is to wake people up. Because when I was in college, you know, that was where things were going, but there was still a desire to try and experiment with music, and people were really supportive of a different type of scene back then. People interacted differently, and I think it's just changed slowly over the years, you know, and our interactions have become predominantly online.
But what makes a music scene, by the way? Is it like the audience that's going to the shows, or is it the artists?
It's both. It's yin and yang.
Okay.
You have to have an enthusiastic audience. You also have to have people that play together and like each other. And I think there needs to be some level of inspiration happening between people. And I don't mean that in like, you know, an inspirational speaker per se, but just, you know, when you hang out with the right group of friends and everyone's laughing and everyone's having a good time. And there was a golden era there of, I mean, what am I talking about? Like, even then I was unhappy with living here at times, because it had drifted more folky, you know, that really was like Fleet Foxes was a great example of what the sound was like in Seattle, probably 2006, 2007. Like, you know, everybody was hanging out in Ballard, growing their beards, wearing flannel, you know. I think the hip hop scene was doing way more interesting shit back then. And I just got bored of that. So we started making rock music and playing house shows all the time. And that was a lot of fun. And that was a scene, you know, and it was just college kids going to house shows and having, you know, buying a keg. And back then, a lot more of us could live in a house. You know, that's the other thing. We didn't used to have to rent just the basement of the house or just the middle floor, you know.
Oh, shit, yeah.
It used to be like cheap enough that we could all kind of, four of us could have each have a room and maybe spend $350, $400 a month to live in Ravenna, you know, to live in some of these places. And that's what creates a scene, because suddenly you have this big ass house, you know, maybe it's on this busy corner next to a gas station so that you can make noise and do something. But then you cram a bunch of employees into Amazon, they rip that fucking house down. And now there's 20 apartments there, and you got two neighbors next door that got to get up, you know, at 6 a.m. to go fucking slog it off, you know, work the next day.
But they still want, I'd say they still want entertainment.
Yeah, but they fucking call in noise complaints.
Okay.
You know, these people move into communities that, you know, are known for their culture.
Yeah.
And they fucking ruin them. It's happening everywhere, though. It happens in Paris.
Was that just for, are you talking about house shows or just like entertainment?
I'm just talking about entertainment in general. That is for house shows too. Okay. But I have a disdain for somebody that has no history in a place.
Okay.
And has the balls to call the police, you know, on like, I'm getting mad about it because this is a real thing.
Yeah.
And it's not the only thing.
Right.
But it's this thing where you choose like, oh, I'm going to go out to the bars there on the weekend. But, you know, if someone next door is like having an after party, I'm going to call the cops on them. You know, I'm going to call it a noise complaint. I'm going to be an asshole to them.
Right.
That's culture right there. I mean, that may not seem like culture to you, but like if, you know, three musicians in Seattle end up doing cocaine together at an apartment and a cool song comes out of it, that's creating culture. You know, I know that sounds cheapened, but that's what that is, you know? So when you make it more difficult to enjoy yourself in a community, when you make it more difficult to do the things you want to do, and when it becomes so focused on just trying to make the rent and trying to work, that's going to diminish culture.
So how do you change that? Did I say that or that?
It's tough to say. Like, I'm trying to do it by connecting people. Like you said, it is who you know. And like, I think I want to, I mean, half of it is like, I don't want to like overestimate my influence musically. So yeah, like half of it is just, I want to make great music. That's influencing culture itself, you know, making good music, thinking about the songs you write, not being lazy with the songs you write. I'm not writing songs just to write a song and be hip with it, you know? Like, I don't just go in the studio and say, let's fucking just do this thing. Like, I have a passion for it, you know? I believe in it. You know, I think I have a good idea for something. I get excited about it.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of it, is to have enthusiasm for what you do and not just do it because it's stylish.
Okay.
But the other half of it is you have to kind of give people a space to be weird and to do weird things and to be, you know, their true self, their whatever self they need to be to inspire others. And I think, you know, that's why I started throwing shows. That's why the whole festival thing came about, was that I felt there was a lack of that sort of thing happening in town. And I said, you know, there's not enough rock and roll happening. I go to like some of the bigger festivals and, you know, I love hip hop. I love dance music. Like, I don't have a problem with that, but I still want to go to a rock festival sometimes, you know? And it just wasn't happening enough. You get a few like niche rock acts on there, you know, sometimes like you look at every festival and you've got, okay, there's going to be like one hipsters with like weird pedals on their guitars looking down at their feet band. And then there's going to be another band that's like 7 to 10 people. And that's the reason they got booked, is there's so many of them that it's entertaining to watch. Okay, that's cool. Okay, King Gizzard is a great example of a band that just, that was their thing, you know? Polyphonic Spree used to do that back in the day. There's just, okay, there's like a big, you know, the Flaming Lips are known for that. There's, oh man, they've got so many people when they play. They're amazing live, you know. There's bands that, you know, it's like it's a whole shtick, you know, they're doing.
Yeah.
But I also just wanted to see, you know, what happened to having a rock festival, you know, like that. Really the only one that's been happening for the last 15 years or so is Austin Psych Fest, which is now Levitation. And that was one of the early things that inspired me.
I don't even hear about new rock songs. There's definitely new music coming out, but it never like even crosses my radar.
You got to look for it.
That's wild.
So I wanted to make that happen. And that's where all this comes from. You know, so I create rock music with Acid Tongue. And now with that new project I have, Mala Suerte, it's even more like...
Wait, what's Mala Suerte?
Mala Suerte is...
Suerte. I just butchered it.
Yeah, it's okay. It means bad luck in Spanish. It's me and this guy, Ryan, local guy from the Grizzled Mighty. Okay. That's his project. It's another rock band out here. And we have some close buds in Mexico City. This couple, Yasmina and her husband, Miguel. And they're in the punk scene down there, and they run a festival as well called Monkey Bee.
Dope.
And Monkey Bee Festival's awesome. It's garage and psych and punk bands. And we started a band during COVID, and I wrote a bunch of kind of the structures of songs and the chorus melodies and things, and I sent it to them. And we started bouncing back and forth between Mexico and Seattle. We've known each other. We've all played together for years, so it's not like we didn't have chemistry already.
Were they in Seattle?
Yasmina plays in she plays in Acid Tongue. It's a keyboard player sometimes.
Okay, were they originally from Seattle? Like how? No,
they're Mexican. They live down there.
But how'd you meet people in Mexico City? Just connections.
My mom's family. My mom has family there.
Okay.
And then, but that's not how I met the two of them. Actually, I met Yasmina first before they were married. She stayed with me in New York City.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah, she was visiting with a friend of hers. Okay. And so, you know, we have history. We start touring together. I meet her husband. He's amazing. And he's a real frontman. And he plays in a band called Carry On Kids. Okay. That was at the festival. Yeah. She plays in Los Honey Rockets. So they were both performing during Freakout this year. And we started this new project mainly because we were all at home and talking anyways. We talk all the time.
But that probably adds inspiration to other projects you're in then, right?
Yeah, so that's it. Like I'm trying to do things that aren't happening. Yeah. You know, like this isn't happening right now.
How would you make a record label even actually? Like that's When I think of record labels, I think of like in Seattle, I think of like Sub Pop, and I don't even know what else.
Out of your apartment, that's how you make one.
Okay.
Put your credit card down and buy a bunch of vinyl for bands and hope that it doesn't blow up in your face. No, we got a business license actually, so we started the thing properly. I have a business partner in that. This guy Skylar. He works over at KXP, and
another connection.
Yeah, but that's not really. He got that job, I think, after we started the label.
Okay.
We knew each other when I was working at the venue. He ran a festival already called Hypnoticon, and I got linked up to him. I was trying to put Hypnoticon at the venue I was working at. Didn't work out, but I said, I like this guy, and I trust this person, and I would really like to keep working with him. So I invited him to get involved with Freakout because at that point it was already in its third year.
Yeah.
And it was a dream. Like that. I think once him and my drummer Ian got involved with the festival, we realized this is a lot better when we're all working together. And that's when we incorporated Freakout as a business. I think before that it was just a bunch of people.
Oh, so it was a festival before it was even a label?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's right. I thought it was a label, and to celebrate the label, you created a festival.
Yeah, that's what it comes off to people. But honestly, it was a reverse. The festival started, I right when I started at Numos, I was working with Capitol Hill Block Party.
Okay.
And I saw what they were doing, so I had a little bit of knowledge of how a mainstream event goes down like that.
Do you need money to create what are the steps besides booking people to make a festival?
As a local, to have money. Yeah.
So as a local artist,
you have to ask people for money at least.
Do you need to for you did you have to build up a reputation at venues and performing for put on your own to make your own festival?
Yeah, I had to know the booker, the talent buyers at each venue, and I had to know the owners of a lot of places.
But could someone come out of nowhere and just have a ton of money and just create a festival?
It's usually shit when they do that. Yeah, people come out of nowhere all the time and try to do that, and it's terrible.
But it's because you don't have culture, or what?
I mean, yeah, money doesn't do it.
Right.
I did this on a shoestring budget, and it's a lot cooler than a lot of events with more money.
Yeah.
We have nothing. We still have nothing.
Right.
But it's fucking awesome. We're still getting more press than some of the events that have fucking money. So I guess it's not money, It's the
community you built.
It's community. It's curating something interesting and not just look, you can't go on Spotify and say, hey, that's the top 40. I'm going to get $1 billion, investor to come in and we'll book the top 40 artists. People fucking know that already. They can go to Coachella to see that. They can go to Bonnaroo and see that.
Right.
They come to Freakout because it's going to be something fucking different. So, but what is that different? I'm not just calling up friends. It's not all nepotism either. I listen to the music,
Yeah.
You had an experience at it, right? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it was great. I had a great time.
It's conducting, It's really fusing together a lot of things. I'm pulling from every skill I have to make all these things happen.
So then people need to go to school then. Maybe, right? If you learn some of that stuff in school, and then you learn the stuff you learned in school got you into jobs that help push your music forward.
Yeah, I guess so. But not everybody does, because everybody's path is different.
Yeah, I'm not.
And there are people. Yeah, there you go. And there's people that I work with that didn't go to school that I think are fantastic.
At what though?
It
business?
depends. Yeah, business for sure. Some people there are plenty of people that have brilliant business acumen and did not go to college. Didn't even finish high school.
Yeah, but artists need in this day and age they need to know how to market themselves and be a business.
Artists should be taking notes, and artists should always be studying. I mean, just because you're not going to school doesn't mean you shouldn't be studying.
Right.
You always have to be studying.
Yeah.
It takes a lot to be the best at what you do. And I'm not even saying I'm the best at what I do. I'm just saying I strive to be the best at what I do. And that's the important part. Because even just to strive to be the best means you got to put in a lot of work. It's what I was talking about before. I'm still tireless about researching everything, you know. I'm always aware of like what venue's opening, what's closing just in my hometown, but I also have a beat on Mexico City because we're doing events there.
Yeah.
And I have, you know, a line out to LA. So so there's always the communication factor of trying to know what's going on. But then there's just studying your craft, you know. Do you still sit and play guitar for hours a day? Like you can't lose track of doing that.
All right.
Just because you put out a couple good records doesn't give you an excuse to not play. You know, you obviously are entitled to a break when you're working a lot, but I'm always playing, you know, I'm always on top of it. I don't miss a beat because you don't have time to do that. When you stumble pretty hard in this industry.
Yeah. So do you stay in Seattle for the community, or why do you stay in Seattle?
Definitely. Like,
Okay.
I feel like the fact that so many folks have been pushed out of here, financially speaking, you know, housing wise, etc., like that has left a void for culture. And, you know, I'm railing against the techies and stuff, but I'm also they do want to see shit.
Yeah.
You know, those motherfuckers want to pay to go see a show, and now all of a sudden
We should put them on the show, right?
Yeah, right. Fuck that. So they've pushed everybody out unknowingly, and now there's nobody left to perform for them, right? So they're not gonna pay to watch Weekend Warriors all the time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And there still needs to be something happening. And there also needs to be people here fighting to keep things alive, you know? And I felt like, you know, I did a few years in New York. I met my wife. I did a year in Paris with her. And I started to notice it's the same everywhere. But here I have the foundation of having the label.
Mm-hmm.
I had, you know, the festival. And I had been commuting home, you know, like taking these long flights to come back and be wrecked and do the festival for a few years. I mean, 4 or 5 years of me being abroad and coming back to do meetings and to do events. And like, I was like, you know what? I think I was able to talk my wife into it too. And she loves Seattle, so it wasn't a huge issue.
Wait, so you moved her from Paris, basically?
Yeah, she had to leave France to come here.
That's funny.
Yeah, that was 2019.
Wow.
We did the festival together. That we hadn't even found a place to live when we did the 2019 fest at the end of the year, and then fucking COVID hit.
Yeah, COVID's been a bitch.
So I mean, I just moved back, and then COVID happened.
That's wild.
I was only home for 3.5 months when we got locked down.
That's wild.
Mm-hmm.
I think my biggest thing right now, at least, is figuring out like demographic stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in 2015, would you say the like people going to shows, were they actual fans or are they still like artists? Because people going to shows now that I see are usually just other artists. And
It's always been a bit like that.
Okay.
It's always been a bit like that. It's not like there was some golden age where like everybody in the city just went out to shows every night.
Yeah.
It was magical. You know, it's always been tough to get people to come to a show.
But it's because you're local? Because I feel like if there was like a lineup of like an A-list artist every single night, there would be at least one person that's going to all those shows in Seattle.
Totally. Yeah, you know, I don't know how to describe where community engagement is at. Like, that's a tough thing to quantify. Yeah, I don't know every person in town. I will say Seattle's always been a tough nut to crack. The audiences can be stiff.
Yeah.
They're introverts, you know, so that's not like it's gotten any better or worse that much. However, I think some of the transplants that come here don't come here to go and party and see music, you know? And when they do go out to party, it's like nightclub, bottle service, that sort of partying, DJ, you know? And that's tough. You know, how do you make that person go see, you know, a funk band?
What I've learned from tech people so far is I think they like more for up and coming artists, even if they're known throughout like the artist community. If they don't know the artist, they need to feel connected through, for tech at least, it seems like, I make a lot of generalizations, but a lot of people coming into tech are like Indians, right? And a lot of them are into like pop music or mainstream music. So when I was talking to the guy the other day, he was saying like he doesn't have to know this artist, but if it's something that he can relate to that's more poppy or mainstream and not too like sometimes they like experimental music, but they like a certain thing. So, but also they like going to, like he was saying, he'd rather go see an up and coming artist at like a SoFar show versus like a Numo show because it's more intimate.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of what the angle I took. No, because I know that intimately. I worked at a tech company, and you're right. There's a lot of Indian folks coming out to this region.
Yeah.
And folks from Asia. And it's cool. I think that's cool too. There's a double-edged sword with that, where you have transplants that don't know the culture of what they're coming, that don't always want to engage with it. But I mean, what culture do we fucking have here too?
Yeah.
And so I do think that there's something to be said for the tastes, but also you have to expose people. And that's like SoFar's built a brand, being a platform for exposure.
Yeah.
And that's what Freakout has been all about.
Yeah.
And so I like the fact that now that, some of the techies are starting to recognize Freakout, they don't care who's playing.
Yeah.
If they see we're presenting a show, or if they read our mailer, or if they, follow the social media, they come out just wanting to try something out. Which means it was just great, that's where the brand is getting at this point, that we're selling out events on the strength of being the presenter, not on the strength of the music we're doing there.
So it takes time no matter what, though.
But people have to trust it too, because it
Yeah.
means they've come out a few times.
Mm.
And yeah, it does take a lot of time. Like, in the beginning, it was us convincing all of our friends. We had the core group in the beginning. One of the guys is an engineer that worked for Sound Transit. One of the guys worked for Amazon.
Mm.
I at the time was working for Numos, and then the other guy was an old coworker of mine from the tech company I had worked at.
Yeah.
So obviously three, consider me one.
Yeah.
And then an engineer.
Yeah.
So we knew how to talk to those people, and we knew how to kind of deal with the antisocial friends of ours and the people in the community. So we were already reaching out to a different side, because I didn't start Freakout Fest with musicians. I started it with 3 people who are patrons of the arts, but mostly just some of my best friends.
Yeah.
And that was a decision made because they were the ones that could be responsible enough to get the job done. That's what it was all about, They were responsible with trying to get people out. They were responsible with making sure the bands got paid. They were responsible with making sure the venues got coordinated correctly. Like, that was important. And I got that there needed to be some adults in the room to make the party happen.
Yeah. Yeah. It's because I want to focus on like live shows this year, but then you have to worry about COVID too. There's so many things I want to put into action this year. So I feel like January, can you believe January is almost up already?
That sucks.
Yeah.
It's only halfway through though.
Yeah.
You got time. It's what, the 15th today?
Yeah.
You're fine.
I think January is oh my gosh, I didn't even realize you're the first guest of 2022.
2022?
Hell yeah, man.
All right. Cheers to that.
Cheers to that,
Is it the 15th?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
There we go.
It's the 15th.
See, now you're getting it.
I'm going to Peru next month with Mala Suerte. Okay.
I'm guessing if you're going with the band, I'm guessing you're obviously performing in Peru.
Yeah. It'll be probably one of the biggest shows I've ever played.
What the?
There's and it's for a band that nobody knows about. We're gonna put our record out in March with this new band, and so we were all kind of reaching out to some of the connections we have, and Miguel got a call from Papi Psychos, who is the frontman of Los Psychos, which are a very famous garage act from Peru from the 60s. And, he's like 70 something now and doesn't want to do this forever. So he's going to retire after this year. And I guess there's a big ceremony in Peru dedicating like a mural to Los Psychos.
Holy shit.
So they're doing like a festival for Los Psychos. I mean, this is like a legendary band. I mean, especially like in Latin America, everybody covers Demolición.
Damn.
It's like their like signature song. And it's like this very covered tune from the 60s. And they're gonna throw this big party, and so we're gonna go down and play with him. We're gonna re-record Demolición, and I'll get to see Peru for the first time.
Send me a postcard, man.
I should.
I have one final question for you. Actually, 2. We got a couple minutes. First, how did you land on this like psychedelic like 70s sound that comes like your vocals when you're singing? Like when I'm talking to you, you don't sound like you're from the 70s, but when you're making music, it sounds like you're kind of from like the 70s. Like, where does that come from?
I just listen to a lot of soul music.
Mm.
That's kind of the main genre for me. It's
Okay.
got to have soul.
Do you like?
I listen to everything,
Yeah.
but I love soul music. There's a special place in my heart, and the prime era of soul is just the 60s and the 70s, you know?
Hell yeah. I like Motown a lot. I feel like Motown and soul.
Motown, Stax Records, all of it. Like, I obsess over it. I don't cover the songs live, but I learn them and I spend time getting intimate, and then that's just translates into how I write music.
Hell yeah.
So, I mean, Acid Tongue is really just me regurgitating soul music into like psych pop, you know, whatever I'm really feeling in the studio that day. I don't really come in with like, this is the genre of the song. I come in with, this is the song. What can we do to make it sound awesome? And it just comes out that way every time.
Yeah.
So I'm a sucker for, you know, an era that's, it's weird though, because I'm kind of creating an era that never existed with the music too, because there's some modern things to it always.
Mm-hmm.
It's just this like forgotten, phony era that never really existed, but I like to kind of build this world, you know?
Yeah. You could say you're similar to The Weeknd with his new 80s modern era.
Yeah. No,
you know?
Blood Orange is like that.
Oh, I love
you
Blood
know,
Orange.
Blood Orange is great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
I think so. I think that, you know, they're doing a similar vibe with that. There's just this like, man, you got to see Cobra Man.
Cobra Man.
Yeah, check them out. Same thing with that 80s era that never existed. Yeah, I love that fake Stranger Things era.
Yeah.
You know?
That's just dope. So who are, let's say, 5? What are the top 5 bands in Seattle you'd say right now? Or your favorite band? I don't even have to be the top.
My favorite band in Seattle right now is Rainbow Coalition Death Cult.
Okay.
Do you know them?
I've heard of them. I have not listened to their music, but they have one of those crazy names.
Do you know Nicole or her band Black Ends?
I've heard of them also.
So it's Nicole from Black Ends, and then my friend Maya, and they started a grindcore, like punk rock. It feels like the Dead Kennedys at times. But it's amazing, and they don't have any social media right now.
Oh.
They're doing it too much like the old days on purpose, and I'm sure it'll crack. Like, I want to put their record out so badly.
Yeah. Okay.
They need some attention. That's all they need, and it would blow up.
There we go.
But they're putting out some of the fucking filthiest music in Seattle right now.
I've heard the name because it's such a wild name. I haven't listened to them.
I like the acronym RCDC they use, which also cracks me up. And I'll see that on the posters, and I just know, I'm like, fuck yeah. But I also really love Beverly Crusher.
I have not heard of them.
It's awesome music.
Okay.
Rock.
Okay.
Monster Watch.
Don't know them either.
Not a band, but I'm obsessed with this kid from Spokane, Django.
I love Django. You got him from it. Dude, Django's my guy.
Yeah, he's coming back. I loved him so much at the last fest. I put him on the next one.
Oh shit, what is that thing that's coming up?
The Freakout Weekender.
Dude, can I get like a press pass? I need
Of course.
Dude, I need to interview Arm & Hammer. That's like, I'm like their biggest fan right now.
Yeah, I'm trying to get them to do KXP.
Dude, that would be wild.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Dude, they have the Earl sweatshirt co-sign.
He doesn't show his face though so he wants to get his face blurred out.
Arm & Hammer?
Yeah.
They're a duo, do you know that?
Yeah. One of the guys doesn't like to have his face shown.
Really? That's kind of cool though. You know, you gotta have a little. We were just talking about shticks earlier. You know.
Yeah, I know. It's cool. MF Doom did that too.
Oh yeah. Did you hear about that thing where he couldn't go to the States for like a year or something? It was either he couldn't go to the States for the year, but he had like a tour. So instead of refunding everyone, he had someone wear an MF Doom mask and just like lip sync on stage. That shit's wild.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the only other act I want to shout out. Oh man, I'm gonna piss off anybody I know in town because I'm forgetting. Yeah, I don't know. There's some good shit happening in town right now.
Yeah, there we go.
You know, there's a lot of good. Shayna.
Yeah.
Shayna Shepherd.
She's doing dope stuff.
But see, I can't shout out somebody I just did on a song. You know, it's of course I'm shouting her out. She's on my music. You know.
Shout out Acid Tongue and their new album
Arboretum.
There we go.
Yeah, you know, like I think there's a lot of really inspiring. You know what? Like, I love that, like, especially Shayna just kind of like took an opportunity during COVID
Yeah.
to create this new thing, because she wasn't doing anything solo. She was in barracks before COVID. And then when the riots on Capitol Hill were happening during George Floyd, she was up there playing piano every day. And, you know, we were working in this studio in Soto, and that's when the seeds of her like solo music was starting to come together. And she still hasn't put out a full length.
Yeah.
But I think Shayna's going to go on to do brilliant shit. She already is.
Yeah.
You know? So I think there's some hope right now.
That's dope.
And it's cool to watch my friends just kind of like push each other to do better and to make better music. And that's what the scene's all about, man. Like, that's it right there. Is like, you got to inspire each other.
Yeah, you've created this inspiring community for me, man. Like, I'm super excited whenever I see anything going on with Freakout Fest and what you're doing. And like, I only learned about you a couple months ago, and I'm already like a huge fan of everything you guys have been doing. And
Thank you.
it's
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
yeah, man, of course.
This is great.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
bring some more rock people on.
dude, I need to. I went through a phase where I was doing it for like a month, and then I just,
Have you talked to Shani yet?
dude, she hit me up and then ghosted me after she reached out to me. And
It's
I was
very rock and roll of her.
like, yeah, very rock and roll.
Yeah.
But we'll figure it out. I need to have her on.
But yeah, bring some of the rockers on. You know, that'll be fun. Help give them a platform.
I'd
You know?
love to.
Yeah.
Well, man, what's the easiest way for people to reach out to you?
I'm at Acid Tongue on Instagram,
There we go.
and we're on Facebook and all the bullshit. I'm not allowed to run the Twitter.
Uh-oh.
Ian handles that.
You'd send some crazy tweets of it.
I don't drink anymore. I haven't drank for a long time, but I used to get fucked up and coked out and tweet weird shit, and he'd be like, "What the fuck? I deleted that." You know, barely was able to do the Instagram stories. He'd lock me out of the Instagram at night sometimes too.
Ah, shit.
Yeah. So.
Well, this has been a great time, and you got to come back on after you're back from Peru, and we could talk about your adventures there.
Yeah, let's do it.
There we go.
All right, man.
This is the NAST podcast with
Guy Keltner. Thank you very much, dude.